noticed from your door, Dr. Flada, that your area is biochemistry. But I understand your real interest is...
Death, Colonel Kane. Correct. Thanatology is the name for it. Death for you, Colonel, is a bureaucratic problem. Who did it? When? Why did they do it? A problem to be solved, am I correct?
And for you?
Well, I'm fascinated by death itself. What happens as we die, when we die, what happens after we die.
You mean life after death?
Yes.
Is there?
What?
Life after death.
Do you really want to know?
No.
But to answer your question, yes, I think there is. If I'm correct, the life force is conserved always and in all things, even after death.
And you think that applies to what's happened here tonight?
Yes. Yes, I do. I think that girl, creature, drained energy, life force partially from Bukowski and totally from the guard.
A vampire?
It could be described that way, yes. I mean, in a sense, we're all vampires. We drain energy from other life forms. The difference is one of degree. That girl was no girl. She's totally alien to this planet and our life form. And totally dangerous.
Hello and welcome to Still Watching the Skies for May 2017. I'm Robert Reinecke.
I'm Nat Almorel.
I'm Cody Lane.
Every month we explore the lesser-discussed science fiction movies of the past. Some famous, some obscure, some trash, some highbrow, all of which we believe will create interesting conversations. This month we'll be discussing a film that certainly has some big names associated with it, with 1985's Lifeforce. Turned out to be a huge bomb for Canon Pictures, despite a pedigree of a script by Dan O'Bannon and being directed by Tobe Hooper. Cody, since it's your pick for the movie this month, why don't you provide our listeners with some of the details on the film?
Okay, Lifeforce is based off of a novel called Space Vampires, which I've never read. And it reads here as, it's a British science fiction horror film starring Steve Railsback, Matilda May, Peter Firth, Frank Finlay, and Patrick Stewart in sort of like a, I don't know, I would call it like a cameo or, like a very small role. Basically, it's about these astronauts that are, as I understand it, they are investigating Halley's Comet, right? And they find a really long spaceship hidden in what's like the trail of the comet. So they go and investigate it. They find out that like there's all these like bats, like these big bat-looking like demon creatures, and then 3 humanoid aliens or human bodies on the spaceship in like these like glass coffin cases. And so they recovered the 3 aliens and they returned them to Earth. Then basically there's like a big jump in, well, not a big jump, but like there's some sort of, there's an ellipsis in the plot and you're kind of brought to Earth, and then you find that they're investigating this ship, and the ship didn't get back properly, and there's or it did, but I think like all the crew's dead, and then they have these 3 people, and then these 3 people are actually like some kind of unique type of vampire that is sucking the life force out of people, hence the title. And from there, it's really hard to summarize what happens. So I'm just gonna hand it off because I'm not that clear on some of the details. Like some of the, well, I think I am, but it just seems to like go pretty all over the place. So yeah, I think I'll hand it off to Nat and Enzo and let you guys give us your first impressions.
Okay. Well, yes, I am here with my 9.5-month-old son. So, quality parenting with my kid talking about Lifeforce. I actually really enjoyed the first half, first 3/4 or so of the film. I think it's a it's like a perfect bridge between Alien and Return of the Living Dead, also written by Dan O'Bannon. Because like the first part really reminded me of Alien. Obviously, you're in space investigating some space matters and discovering something of unknown origin and bringing it aboard your ship. And they don't really do too much with like the crew arguing over like quarantines or how the procedure should be done. But I find like the whole setup in the ship itself and just the mystery among like how these people were able to get in space or in this comet pretty compelling. And I think they play on that a decent amount. And then they cut to Britain, and I actually do like a lot of the early stuff with them kind of going through like how to assess this situation, and being semi-scientific. Enzo didn't like that part. Being semi-scientific about it, and how they discover like that it is a space vampire and that it drains the life, and then it like the vampire prime can drain life and make the other people vampires, but then it can't go back and forth, and just working out the logistics of that, and like how they figure they have 2 hours between when someone's had their life force drained and when they become a vampire. And I think for that too, all the special effects I think are amazing, and I like there's some very creative camera work in just like these crash zooms and crash zoom outs, and I think there's even like a fisheye lens at some point.
Yeah, there's some upside down camera work when they're floating around in the spaceship.
Yeah, which I mean, really innovative, and again, I like that. I think the part where I guess they started to lose some interest is really kind of when Patrick Stewart comes into it, and I think this movie is probably a good half hour or at least 20 minutes too long.
It is longer than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's a lot longer than I thought it'd be. It's almost 2 hours, and I don't know. I like the idea that they had with Patrick Stewart's character, but I think their reveal is kind of clumsy, and it takes so long to go through. And similarly, I think the whole reveal of what actually happened on the Churchill, like they do it twice. I think they only really need to do it once, because the first time it's like, what really happened? And you get an abridged or kind of half-truth version, and then they come back to it, and I feel like...
And then he says, here's what really happened, right?
Yeah, it's like...
Yeah.
It's like
that was weird, yeah.
It could have happened this way, but here's what really happened. And I think by that point, you already get the whole point that they're trying to emphasize that... What's his name? The commander.
Colonel Carlson.
Colonel Carlson.
Steven Railsback's character,
Yeah, but that, like, he's fallen for the vampire, and...
Sorry, that's my kid. Isabel, shut up!
I can't tell Enzo to shut up, because my wife sometimes listens to it, the podcast, and I wouldn't tell him to shut up anyway, because he's adorable. But yeah, I think by that, like, the whole point of it is just to show that he has like this romantic love for the vampire, and I think it's already established and is established multiple times, so it feels a little redundant. But I mean, all in all, I like this a lot more than I thought I would. I think the special effects are amazing. I really like the beginning of it, and I also like the British commander as well. Just very British through it, and I like how everything is resolved in the end, but it just goes to hell at the almost literally at the end of it. I was not expecting like a full scale. It is vampires technically, but it's zombies basically, like zombie outbreak in London. But yeah,
base vampire zombies.
Exactly. What about you, Robert?
I think I had a good time with it overall, although it would be hard to defend it on any sort of structure level or thematic level. I have no idea what this film is ultimately about. I think it's about just what kind of crazy stuff can we throw on the screen that'll be fun, and let's just lump in every crazy thing we can think of and do it with as much skill as we can and see what comes of it. Because I don't know how this movie is supposed to hang together. I mean, you get something like Alien at the beginning. I mean, I'm even somewhat surprised that they have that kind of a prologue to the film, because really the plot doesn't kick in until the Churchill comes back to Earth, and maybe that would have made the flashbacks more acceptable, because we don't really need to see that. Although the upside down camera work in that is all fun, so it's kind of where does this film really begin is kind of questionable. But then it comes, okay, we got the ship coming back to Earth that we sent out there, we lost communication with, so it's kind of like Quatermass Experiment. And then they discover that, that ship brought back something alien that's even more, making it even more Quatermass Experiment. And the astronaut that went up there, it's somehow linked to it. So then we're going to go investigate it. And then it kind of comes sort of like Dracula, where they go into an insane asylum. Mm-hmm. Or some vampiric stuff is going on. And that kind of loses me there, although I guess the alien being in somebody else's body is their way of doing a tribute to Quatermass 2. Or just Hammer vampire films in particular. So, I mean, it's like you're doing these two things that are related, but there's no real linking into it. There's no Quatermass figure that's investigating it.
I thought there kind of was initially with the long-haired, silver-haired guy who then became bad at the end.
Yeah, Dr. Falada.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, okay, this is going to be cool, because I liked their back and forth between him and the British, I guess, military guy. Right. And then it switches to the American astronaut and then the British guy. Yeah. And then I was kind of missing that back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my questions about this film. Who is the main character here? I mean, I would guess it would be Steve Railsback, but he disappears for a good chunk of it.
Long time. Yeah.
And I mean, I like the British Peter Firth, Colonel Kane. Mm-hmm. I liked him, but he never seems to be particularly invested in it, or the lead, or driving the film. And he doesn't come in until a good 30, 45 minutes into the film.
But he seems he seems to just kind of go around and look disdainfully at everyone who's not part of the military.
Yeah, but he is, for all intents and purposes, he is the main character aside from Stephen Railsback. He does seem to drive a lot of the plot.
Yeah, he's the guy that gets stuff done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or he at least seems to be like a supporting main character or something. You know, I'm not. Yeah, it is a strange film if you think about it in structural plot terms, because it seems to be like a couple movies in one. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if you guys watched. I watched the director's cut, and I don't know what difference there is. I'm assuming there's just more breasts in it, or more shots of it, you know. And I didn't really look into what the differences are, but my running time was about 2 hours.
Yeah, that was about mine. I think they have more space stuff in it, is my understanding.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But
which is cool, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure. I also really enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it's a good movie.
I mean, it has lots of fun stuff going on.
But I still really like it.
Yeah. I mean, I really like the special effects in it. I really like the look of the guys once they get drained of their life force. I think that's really interesting and fun.
Yeah.
Matilda May is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Patrick Stewart, kissing Stephen Railsback. Did everyone like that?
That was so funny. Yeah. Yeah, that was funny.
I'm surprised that Stephen Railsback is the lead. I mean, from my understanding, the budget is like $25 million, which is quite a large budget back in the day.
That's huge for Canon budget too.
Yeah, mm-hmm. and Stephen Railsback is who anchor your film around?
I know, he sucks. I've seen him in lots of other stuff for whatever reason, and I always hate him. I hated him in Stuntman.
I mean, I would never say he's my. I mean, he's okay in some things I've seen him, but I've never thought he was a leading man.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he's not quite like he's.
He kind of a Redfield character is really what he is.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess technically he kind of sets everything in motion. But like you said, it's Kane who pretty much does everything, and then you have Frank Finlay who's behind the scenes, and I still don't exactly know what his character's position is. He's like a
scientific advisor.
Which is Frank Finlay?
What's that?
Who's Frank Finlay? Is he the gray-haired guy?
Yes. Dr. Collada.
Yeah, I thought he was an awesome character, and then they kind of just ditched him for this sort of globe-trotting thing.
Yeah.
Or not globe-trotting, but this kind of guy-on-the-road thing. And then when he comes back, I did not get why he was acting the way he was acting. I guess it's because he was turned into a vampire, but
yeah,
I don't know. It just seemed to be kind of like wrapped up too quick. Not that it should have been longer either, but.
Well, and he's such a weird choice to choose for that role too, because it's a pretty sedate role, and like, I think Frank Finlay is kind of known for being very over the top. Like, he's a very energetic and like just he's kind of like a Ken Russell equivalent of an actor, like just really bizarre and out there, and yeah, just like, again, very over the top. But yeah, his character is just very laid back and sedate. And
yeah, I thought he was going to be our Dr. Quatermass or Professor Quatermass.
Well, that's what he was like for a bit. He was kind of
he
was kind of calling the shots, and he was in charge. And then they just leave him because you get the astronaut character into the thing or into the story, and then it has to follow him.
And like, everybody in this is kind of very bland too, except for like Mathilda May and I think even maybe Kane at some points, but then the basis of comparison is not that or easy to establish or not that high. But yeah, I don't know. There's not really, I guess, memorable characters in this in the same sense of, I guess, like other Dan O'Bannon works or Tobe Hooper works.
Well, I still enjoyed it though. I still like. It's not that like there may not be memorable characters, but I still liked watching them, and I liked the story, or I guess I liked the story. like I was never bored. I was always kind of wanting to see where it would go to next.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of special effects, people getting energy sucked out of them, action scenes, helicopter flights, and all sorts of things are going on here. I don't know if they necessarily follow A to B to C, but
it's not put together well. But I was also getting some like John Carpenter vibes a little bit, like sort of maybe a little bit of Prince of Darkness, and like a little bit, not too much. It doesn't have like the bold way of presenting everything like Prince of Darkness does, but what was weird to me was, I was trying to think of movies like sci-fi horror movies from this time, and this is one of the first ones, or it's one of the ones to do it in a way where you felt like the problem became a global problem. Was this film in blockbuster films now, we always like the finale always involves the fate of the entire world. It's not just the fate of it's not just the fate of the characters are falling, it's the fate of the entire world. So, and they try to make that, and that's used to make to try to like bring up the stakes or whatever, and it's always done in such a bad way. But this one, so like you got these people going around sucking life, and then you realize they're like channeling their life, or like there's a big Lifeforce channel to the giant ship.
Yeah, there's a big energy pillar in the sky.
Yeah. And I actually like that, because it seems like in some sense, it's not put together well, but the film is kind of just going really extreme and really excessive. You know, it's not just about these scientists that are in trouble now, or the victims, but it's about the entire world whose life is being sucked up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one thing I was trying to think of that was similar was maybe like Cronenberg's movie Rabid, where it starts off as like a really kind of a small, localized zombie / vampire outbreak thing, and then it involves the entire country of Canada. And there's like a quarantine set up and all that kind of stuff. So
well, I was specifically reminded of Quatermass in the Pit there at the end.
Yeah.
They have the whole London going crazy at the end. Although they obviously they did the Pillar of Energy in the Sky, which I guess Ghostbusters beat them to it, but this seems like they're going even further in that direction, and so everybody does it nowadays. Right. But I think it's certainly got to be one of the first times it's been done on film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is the animator for the Lifeforce sequences, is that the same guy who did Ghostbusters and Star Wars and like all that?
I think it is.
Electricity animations of the 80s.
Was it John Dykstra that did that work? I'm trying to remember from the credits. I didn't look at it closely, but it seems like it could be him.
I don't recall, but it just, the effect looks similar, and it has like that same kind of like erratic movement, but like I don't know, like a special effect that is a special effect, but it's still done so well that like it kind of takes you out of the movie to bring you back to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they established what it was and what it was doing pretty well, I thought. Maybe even they were too on the nose explaining it, but I was like, yeah, well, for what it's supposed to be, that makes sense for what they're showing here.
Yeah. Although that's another thing too, like, and I will say every so this movie had something that kind of impressed me or took me to a place I didn't expect it to go, and I was surprised and impressed that it went. But I never feel like that theme of life force or the significance or importance of life force is ever like really established.
No, because I would agree. They talk about it briefly.
Yeah, like
they have one introductory thought on it, and then they kind of don't know what to do with it from there. Yeah, like Frank Finlay has his whole speech, like his interest is in like deathology or whatever, and he's this very respected scientist, I guess. But he says, "Oh well, he immediately pegs on that like she's consuming life force," but. Is this like an established scientific theory? Is there a lot of work that's going into the idea of this life force, and even again, like, then how does that tie into a larger message of the movie? Like, are the vampires or ultimately the spaceship just looking for people's souls, and so does Halley's Comet, prove that human beings have souls, like within this very scientific and procedural community, that there's something beyond that exists, and what does that mean for humanity? But you've given much more thought to it than the movie has.
Well, I'll tell you why, and this will sound disgusting, but there was a point in the movie where I was thinking, okay, so if all they want are just this life force from humans, then like would they be satisfied with like sperm? So, because there's the whole like extreme sexual element to it. So I was wondering, maybe this is the direction that it's going to go in.
Like they just raid a sperm bank?
They're like harvesting sperm because you have millions and billions of sperm in a very small amount of liquid. And then from that, I was thinking, well, then does that mean that each sperm has a soul? If we're equating life force with souls, and from there, then is this like a pro-life movie, or is this going to move in like a pro-life thing by saying that all your sperm has souls, and that like the Bible somehow is actually correct? But even more than that, like what does that do for the political community, like in terms of giving abortions and within Britain, which it's a, I guess maybe disgusting or overly complicated line of thought, but it sounds like it'd be a really interesting movie to just kind of have that debate.
That's not
I think
this
it's
movie.
more Catholic than the movie is, though.
What's that?
That sounds more Catholic than the movie is. Like,
Are you just trying to say that every sperm is sacred?
Every sperm is great. And if a sperm is wasted, well, you get the idea.
yeah, like I didn't. Well, I wasn't looking for like, okay, like what's this meaning here, or what's this about? I just saw it as like a really sort of crude way of like taking the idea of a vampire and making it into science fiction. Mm-hmm. And so you have like these things turning people into zombies, and then you have them taking over their bodies, and then the ship is literally a vampiric thing sucking Earth as its victim. And then that's kind of like basically the basis of lots of alien invasion films, where aliens come to use Earth for its resources and then leave it decimated or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I saw it. I didn't really, which I think is about as deep as you can read into the film, which isn't a problem for me.
Well, I mean, I feel it's like this really kind of
we're giving it more thought than it.
Yeah. I kind of think this is a little bit of Tobe Hooper combining two of his bigger hits. Salem's Lot TV movie with Poltergeist with all the lights and special effects going on, and we'll do this, and this is certainly going to be a big hit too.
Yeah. This did remind me a lot of Salem's Lot in I guess not so much looking at a small town community, but I think just the way and I think this is kind of like a Tobe Hooper thing, but it looks very natural. Like it looks like it's shot in natural light, and it has like a little bit of a, I don't know, folksy look to it. So it's kind of, I don't know, highlighting like the supernatural with kind of a commonplace thing. Because like I think of the Salem's Lot as like, the sets being fairly well worn and a lot of consideration given to them, and like the space looking lived in, and certainly like you get a similar kind of documentary feel to obviously Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
How do you guys think this one sort of ranks within like Dan O'Bannon's writing career? Like, is it kind of par for the course for his writing credits, or did like the other guy kind of mess it up a bit?
Well, I kind of think that Alien is the big outlier in his career.
Yeah.
But
that's.
I would say Return of the Living Dead is my favorite of his.
Yeah,
But
I think this is more like Return of the Living Dead or even Dark Star. He's definitely being kind of goofy here.
Yeah,
which is fine. I mean, he enjoys doing that, and I've always enjoyed his goofy let's have fun approach to filmmaking. I mean, I think he's more at home in kind of these jumped up B movies than he would have been as a serious writer. Although that's probably, I think that's sort of the banter between characters is what make Alien so much fun. I think that's what he brought to the table. But he's always been up front that he's been ripping off or homaging everywhere and just kind of combining it in a new ways. So,
yeah.
I mean, he's certainly not the most original writer, but I mean, he is fun if you're on his wavelength.
Mm-hmm. And he seems to have worked a lot with Tobe Hooper.
Mm-hmm.
Like he did Lifeforce, he did Invaders from Mars, also for Canon the year after, and then he did, I think, isn't Screamers by Tobe Hooper? No, it's not. Never mind. That was a bad movie, though. Yeah. Huh.
I don't know. I kind of wonder how much cocaine was done on this set too.
Alien is kind of the sort of one that stands out as being different, and this one is in line with his kind of style, I guess is what you're saying.
Although isn't Alien, like, didn't Alien have like a pretty substantial rewrite? Like, I think a lot of the main ideas were Dan O'Bannon's, but I feel like Alien, the final product, is still pretty different from the original O'Bannon script.
So, yeah, okay, well, it says here, original story, Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, and then screenplay by Dan O'Bannon.
Okay. But, I mean, like...
Do you think there's another rewrite on that?
There were several rewrites that I know that went on with Alien. Although I believe it was O'Bannon's idea to bring in H.R. Giger.
Mm-hmm.
Because they
had,
because they had met on Jodorowsky's Dune, so...
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, you still can get a lot of, or like one person getting credit for screenplay with like 30 different people doing rewrites on it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I have no doubt that most of it was Dan O'Bannon's, but I would imagine that a lot of the schlockier stuff was sanded down and maybe even eliminated to just let Ridley Scott do his visual directing.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine also that some of the crew scenes were all ad-libbed together in that period.
Yeah, like sort of improv a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certain they hit key lines, but I would also bet that certain of those things were just kind of made up as they went along.
Mm-hmm.
How does everyone feel about the way the lady, or what do they call her, Lady Vampire or something like that, in the credits, like how she's killed?
With the sword?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. Yeah.
Like a very British sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like that you have this sword that they just magically find can kill vampires, and like I don't know, I feel like there's a King Arthur reference in there, but
yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere wherever that sword knife came from.
Yeah, but I have to say, if I were in Colonel Kane's position, I would not actually know what to do when Carlson extended his hand. Like, I would actually probably give him my hand and try to lift him up instead of give him the sword. Because I don't think at that point, like, Kane doesn't know that the sword can kill him. And
yeah,
so, you know, I would just expect him to be asking for a hand. Or, I don't know, maybe inviting for a three-way. But we'll try to keep it, decent around Enzo.
The dual stabbing through it, I mean, certainly it brings up the vampire thing in a big way. I think Frank Miller did something similar in Ronin, his samurai science fiction film, where the
comic,
where the samurai confronts a demon, and the demon gets behind him, and the only way to kill it is to basically stab through himself and through the demon at the same time. So.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they were comic readers at the time, but it wouldn't surprise me. I know that was before this, but either way, I kind of dig the image and how it all came together there.
Mm-hmm.
What do people think of Henry Mancini's score?
I can't remember it really. I don't know. It's not bad.
At least it was Henry Mancini. It's weird. It's like more of a adventure movie theme, or at least the opening
football highlight theme.
Yeah, mm-hmm. It's like a Morricone theme where at times it'll have nothing to do with the actual movie itself.
No,
but still sound decent.
I mean, I would say this is something of a horror film, and it sounds like something that'd be more associated with some sort of Star Wars ripoff than a horror or an Alien ripoff.
The sound of it, like the
just
score?
the beat and it's kind of upbeat and dun 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 thing going on for it.
Like it didn't stand out to me, but it didn't really. Like, it didn't seem bad, but it didn't. Yeah, it doesn't have a creepy or modern sound to it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's like he wrote it for something else, and the Canon being Canon just slapped it on a Lifeforce.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at sort of like, lists of best canon films, and this is always on that list. Not saying that makes it good, but it does seem to be really fondly remembered by a lot of fans of this. I guess what they were a studio, right?
Yeah.
They were a sort of a
production
Hammer
company.
ripoff. Yeah, production company. Yeah. So.
I mean, I can't say I was ever the biggest Canon fan, but I knew of them at the time, and I knew what they represented, and they did have an identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I that's more than a lot of corporate studios had during the 80s, and they would just release anything. It's like, I don't know why it's released by any particular company. It's just released, but you could always tell a Canon film.
Yeah, I sort of like that idea of these genre production houses that have a really unique identity. So it's not really you're following a director so much as you're following a company, I guess, and that's kind of cool to find. There's some other smaller ones as well too, but they're not as good.
I mean, you used to have that in classic Hollywood too. I mean, you could obviously tell
exactly.
a MGM film from a Warner Brothers film without too much doubt, just by subject matter or how they would go about it.
Yeah, and who was working for them and stuff like that. Yeah.
Michael Curtiz, director, is probably a Warner Brothers film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, well, are you guys all tapped out of this Lifeforce?
Nice.
Yeah,
that's spontaneous. Or?
That was fun. That was me stumbling on a pun. Yeah,
that was good.
I would actually like to watch his other canon. The other one, I think, Invasion from Mars, right? Is that it, or
Invaders from Mars?
Yeah. Have you guys seen that one?
Mm-hmm. I have, and I know it's a remake of a '50s one.
Is it as good? Or?
I wouldn't. I mean, the reputation is that the '50s one is better.
Yeah.
But I know the '80s one has its fans.
Okay. And then he made the second Texas Chainsaw for them.
Yep.
Yeah. And did you like that one?
I've never seen the second one.
Okay. Yeah. Same here. All right. We should just. Well, what's next then? Since Enzo's getting his diaper changed.
Why don't we just take a break here while it's being changed? Okay, I think that wraps it up for Lifeforce. Just to fill some time on here, I was planning on going to the Patio Theater Sci-Fi Spectacular this year for the marathon, but I just couldn't make it. We just couldn't coordinate with anybody else to go. But thought it might be fun just to kind of come up with our own type of first annual sci-fi marathon that we would throw together in place of somebody else's marathon. So basically, come up with 12 movies that we would throw into a marathon, build off of what we pick, and see where it goes organically and what kind of marathon we would come up with.
Just freeball it together.
Exactly. So no worrying about logistics and getting guests and booking theater and finding prints. It's just whatever we can come up with that we think would make a good marathon. Now, I think we'll probably lean away from some of the biggest names because there's no reason to do...
Toby Hooper?
Well, 2001, because you can just throw 2001 into a theater by itself and people show up.
Totally.
So this is kind of like a value packaging proposition.
Gotcha.
Now, I'll kick it off and we'll get kind of rotated around with whoever... has the next pick having the final say on what gets chosen. So let's start out with mine. I always like to see a science or a silent film or just a real old obscure film to kick things off, especially if it's not too long. So I'm looking through what the silents were. I don't want to do Woman in the Moon because like over 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And Metropolis,
That's boring.
And Metropolis, you can just throw into the theaters anytime you want, and people would show up. So I was thinking that maybe we just kick it off with a nice short 10, 15 minutes worth of Edison's Frankenstein.
Oh, that's technically science fiction. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get it started, and I think people would show up for it, and it's more of a curiosity than an actual film. But curiosities are okay in a marathon context.
Yeah, we could call the marathon Cabinet of Curiosities.
Right. Still watching the Skies Cabinet of Curiosities?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's go Nat's next. Nat and Enzo, what do you got?
I would say, let's see here. One thing I would like to include, just because it's come up a bunch in either different variations or different situations or different conversations, is The World, the Flesh, and the Devil. I just feel like at least once a year we have like some film that's inspired by that film or that premise, and I feel like it should get a little bit more of its a little bit more recognition.
I agree.
It'd be fun to see that in the theater.
Yeah, I would think The Abandoned New York would look really great on the big screen.
And that I Don't Like It Here song would pop in the theater. Cody?
Cody.
I'll go with a recent one that I watched. I think it's very flawed. And since we're going with a really short 15-minute one, I'll go with a really long one. 4.5 hours.
Of course you would, Cody.
Until the End of the World by Wim Wenders. Starring William Hurt and what's that guy's name? Sam Neill. And a bunch of European actors. Oh, and what's that guy's name? He's from Hour of the Wolf. Max von Sydow. Yeah. He's in it. And then you also got Jane Moreau, I believe her name is, from Hiroshima Mon Amour. And a bunch of other cool actors pop up. It's a really weird, really clunky sci-fi movie about this device that records images for blind people. And it features like basically every song or band that Wim Wenders did a music video for in the 80s and early 90s. Lots of U2 on the soundtrack, lots of like REM and other, what was considered to be alternative rock back then. Although now they're quite mainstream. Well, not really REM, but yeah. Anyway, it would be it's sort of a genre bending piece. It starts off in kind of a hard boiled narrative, and then it becomes a love story, and then it becomes this kind of globe trotting dreamscape kind of story with a pretty good ending, I think. So back to Robert.
I think you would have many people scurrying out to lunch for a long one in the middle of a marathon.
Ah, very funny. No, it's mandatory viewing.
Nobody leaves the theater, huh?
No one leaves the theater even to take a piss. It's actually good.
I don't doubt it's good.
And you can show it They can show like in 3 parts. I watched it in 3 parts. So yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking we're not quite into prime time yet, so I'm thinking something a little bit rare, something that hasn't been seen before. I don't think I've seen it in over 40 years myself, but I am going to throw in something different and rare. I'm thinking Colossus, the Forbin Project.
The what?
Colossus, the Forbin Project. It's basically scientists create a computer to basically control nuclear weapons, to take human error out of the equation, and the supercomputer becomes sentient and decides to take over the world for itself.
Mm-hmm.
This is like 1970, 1971. So, something that I don't think a lot of people have seen, but I think would be curious about.
Never heard of it.
It might come up on a future podcast at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Nat, you're up.
Damn, that's. I was gonna say Equinox, just to do like that '70s, like summer spectacular vibe, but I think Colossus kind of beats me to it. What time of day are we at now?
Well, I think we're getting into the evening here. We're probably around 7 p.m.
Okay.
So we're getting into prime time here.
Okay. Well, maybe continuing a little bit on that trend, but changing it up slightly. And I'm not sure if this would quite work. Has anyone heard of the Beast of Boggy Creek?
No.
I have.
Which I don't know if that technically would qualify as sci-fi. Maybe more like cryptozoology.
I count cryptozoology. That's
Okay.
science.
Then I would do that. I would go for that to kind of continue that weird 70s feel, but also kind of make a little bit more documentary focused and a little bit of horror in there as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of
what's
a
it about?
Bigfoot type thing, right?
Yes. It's not a very good movie. I guess it was a huge success, though, which is odd. And I think favorably reviewed. I don't know. It'd be an interesting movie to discuss at some point. But that's my pick.
Okay. Cody, you're up.
Okay, so we're going off of sort of like a cryptozoology thing. I guess I'll pick. I guess I will pick Starship Troopers
Okay.
by Paul Verhoeven.
That's a heck of a pick. I think people would show up for that, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'd be good. Yeah.
Big bug fight.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
back to me. So we've had Bigfoot and we've had alien insects. Boy, I don't know how to really follow up with that. Maybe I have to go, I don't know, maybe we need some sea creatures in here or something.
Leviathan.
You know what? I think I'll go with Leviathan. I saw Leviathan when it came out in the theater.
That is a good choice.
That movie rocks.
That movie does rock. It's alien underwater.
Yes, it is. Literally.
Yes.
Yeah.
They
exactly
did
what it
not
is.
change much.
No.
That probably would have been good for a little later, but we got it getting pretty late now, too. That's going to be around midnight, so... We're probably in the midnight to 3 a.m. range now, so...
Yeah.
So, choose appropriately, Nat.
Ooh, that's tough. At some point, I would like to have, which they actually do at the Patio Theater, which I think both Robert and I really enjoyed, have some old Warner Brothers cartoons playing. So maybe like a little bit of a midnight snack medley of those cartoons to kind of break up the intensity of both Leviathan and Starship Troopers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any particular that you want to throw in there?
Any Duck Dodgers or I suppose anything with Marvin the Martian. I'm trying to think of I don't know if there's like a lot of very science fiction heavy elements. That there's obviously supernatural elements with it, investigating haunted houses and
You got
what
Bugs
have you.
Bunny versus Gremlins.
Mm-hmm. We can do that.
There's certainly some Frankenstein related ones.
Yeah, I guess with what's the big red monster's name?
Oh, I can't remember, but yeah, I know what it looks like.
But that can be a couple of those can be my choice. And if anyone wants to shout out specific favorites that they would like to see, we would definitely welcome it.
Mm-hmm. So you can put that in the comments, and we will include it. Let's say we were looking about for 5 or 6 of those, just to fill up an hour.
And it wouldn't necessarily have to be just Warner Brothers. We could do like 30s Fleischer Studios,
we could always do Superman cartoons.
Yeah.
Or I'm sure Disney has to have something that's related.
Cody?
So I think maybe we'll end it with like a bang, like a big bang. I was thinking, like, okay, what's a good movie where like everything dies at the end and everything, everyone, so it's like a bad ending, like an apocalypse.
Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, that would be good. I was thinking of Body Snatchers because it has kind of a dour ending, if I remember it correctly. That's the Abel Ferrara version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Well, the 70s one too.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's kind of what I would pick. I don't know if this is a really cohesive festival. It's about as cohesive as our podcast is month to month.
So which are we putting there? Because we're going to have 3 more after this, just to take us through the night into the morning.
Really? There's 3 more after this?
Yeah, this would just be number 9.
Oh. Yes, of course. 4 each. My bad. Bad math. Okay, so I was going with Body Snatchers, yeah. So
Body Snatchers would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one's well due for reappreciation. I would be surprised if it doesn't become popular in some festivals now. I think people have come around on that one.
I think they've come more around on him, yeah. Seems like.
So back to me. We're in the middle of the night. We did Body Snatchers. Let's come up with something to keep people awake. Why don't we go with Stuart Gordon's From Beyond?
Oh, yeah. You've seen that one?
I have not, but...
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
And I
wanted to recommend it for the podcast.
Or actually, I'm going to take that back. Not because it's bad. But I had another one on my list that I think would be fun that either people could sleep through or they would have fun watching. But I'm thinking Fiend Without a Face.
I haven't seen that one.
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least it has a good finale.
Yeah.
When the invisible crawling brain creatures become visible and start strangling people, and then they get shot, they explode with a bout of blood.
Oh, yeah.
Sure of blood, so. And it's Criterion, so it's classy.
Yeah. I gotta watch that.
So, Nat, what do we got?
One moment. You just do not want to go to sleep, do you? It's going to be a little fussy.
I know what you're going to say, Nat.
This would be a good time for World on a Wire so people can catch up on their sleep.
Hey! I would like to see World on a Wire in a theater.
With an intermission, yeah.
No, I'm going to go the Cody route and just make him say no bathroom breaks. No popcorn breaks. I actually don't know what I was going to say. I would say Invasion of the Saucermen, which may be what you thought I was going to say, but I feel
thought you were going to say Flatliners.
I've never even seen Flatliner.
It's a Canadian classic.
Oh, actually, speaking of Canadian classics, I would really like to see, and now I'm blanking on it, but the Canadian horror film with
Jojo?
No, with the the one with the radio DJ.
Pontypool.
Yes,
yeah.
I think that'd be awesome to see in a theater.
I accept zombie horror as science fiction.
Oh, I should have picked Day of the Dead.
Well, you got one more to go here. Number 12, and it is your code.
My number 4 is a special one. It'll be Zardos, the sci-fi film to end all sci-fi films.
John Borman.
Little Sean Connery, bare-chested Sean Connery,
Bare-chested, bare-thighed.
bareheaded.
Yeah, well, that chest is not bare. Or if you're
It's
saying
not bare of hair, yes. It's bare of clothes.
BEAR, yes. It is. The chest is exposed, but the chest itself is not to be seen amid the thick, massive bushel of hair.
So
We could rename the marathon Barely Science Fiction and then spell it like in a weird...
Foggy Creek kind of fits that.
Spell it in like a, barely as in like B-A-R-E.
Yeah.
Y, and then when we open the curtains, a bunch of bears come out, like actual bears.
I almost was going to throw in, if it had been my pick, I think I would have thrown in the Abominable Snowman after the Beast of Boggy Creek.
Every time I try to watch that, I get like 5 minutes into it, and I'm like, this is so boring. I love Abominable Snowmen and the idea of an Abominable Snowman, but goddamn, this is boring. Like Peter Cushing, Hammer Films, Abominable Snowmen, black and white. Like, oh, Jesus. I don't even remember if it's black and white or not.
It is black and white.
Okay.
It's a Nigel Neal script, if that helps explain it.
That's why. That's exactly why. It's just, it's angry and dull and Nigel Neal boring bullshit.
Anyhow, I will sum it up for our listeners who may or may not have been keeping track at home. Edison's Frankenstein to lead it off. The World, the Flesh, and the Devil. A little post-apocalyptic nuclear film. Until the End of the World. People get their lunch. They riot when they can't get out of the theater. And then they settle in and watch it. Colossus, the Forbin Project. The Beast of Boggy Creek. Starship Troopers. Leviathan. A shorts program of animated films with some sort of science fiction relation. Duck Dodger specifically would be in there. Let's see. We have Abel Ferreira's Body Snatchers. We have Fiend Without a Face. We have Pontypool. And we finish it off with Zardoz, which every science fiction marathon should end with Zardoz, I think. Because where can you go from there?
To a different genre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was good. We did get emails there this month, so I'm going to just wrap it up because I know we've been here a while, though I don't know if they'll show up in the runtime. I have next month's pick.
What is it going to be?
I have a guest lined up, and we have proposed a double feature for that.
Ooh.
But
are we going to be recording it like the 1st of May, or?
I don't think so. It'll be it'll probably depend on when Cody is available, because I know Cody is available, wrapping up. Has some availability issues in May, but we'll get it in there at the end. Anyhow, one of these is famous, and one of them is not so famous. They're both by a famous director of science fiction films, and they're both in 3D.
Ooh.
Okay.
So we have coming up. It Came from Outer Space.
Nice.
And Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Nice.
So I figure maybe we can talk about what aesthetics go into making a good 3D film or not.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do we watch them in 3D?
Well, they're available. I don't know. I don't expect you to watch it if we don't have to. If you can, well, you can always come over and visit me. I do have 3D capability.
Really?
Yep.
And you watch stuff in 3D?
Not too much.
No, yeah, I didn't think so.
But my TV came with it, and I said, well, since it comes with it, I might as well watch a few things in it. But, I mean, I think it'll be fun. I think that'll give us a modern thing to discuss, since we still get a lot of 3D films coming out, even though I think the fad is fading.
Yeah.
And we could probably talk about why it's fading now versus why it's faded in the 50s. But both of these films are by Jack Arnold, and I think it's long past time we got around to some Jack Arnold films.
All right.
Good old Jackie A.
And I believe Ray Bradbury wrote the script for It Came From Outer Space.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
So there should be a lot of things to discuss. I think they'll both be fun. I know Creature from the Black Lagoon is... I expect all of us have seen it previously.
I've never seen it.
I have seen it.
I have seen it too, so... Anyhow, that will be next month. So, that should wrap up this episode. If you have questions or comments, you can email us at skiespodcast@gmail.com, post on this topic at wherethelongtailends.com, or leave us a note on Facebook. Also, feel free to share a link on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll join us next month for a 3D double feature of It Came From Outer Space and Creature from the Black Lagoon. Bye.
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 Goose is dead, the bats have left the bell tower. The victims have been bled, red velvet lines, the black box. Bella Lugosi is dead. Bella Lugosi is dead. His tomb, strewn with time-stamped flowers, bereft in deathly bloom, alone in a darkened room. The Count. Bela Lugosi is dead. Undead, undead, undead. Undead.
Watch the skies, everywhere. Keep looking. Keep watching the skies.